Should the Rams trade for this star pass rusher? And the Rams are going down under. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the number one sports podcast network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, drop a comment down below. Podcast listeners, write us a review. We'll read it on the show. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've covered LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleach Report, LA Sports Report, and as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's going to be entering his 12th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, we're talking Super Bowl 2027 in LA. Also, the Rams are heading down under to start the season. We'll talk about what that means. What did Puka Nacua say about that too? Really interesting stuff. Maxx Crosby, a Los Angeles Ram. Is it a good idea? And let's get into it. Actually, I want to start today, though, Travis, the Super Bowl odds for next season. The Seahawks, the favorites per FanDuel at plus 750. The Rams at plus 800 right behind them. And I don't know if you believe in the Super Bowl logo predictor of colors, but the logo is orange and like bluish, greenish. So people are trying to run with that, saying it's Rams-Bengals rematch of Super Bowl 56. The NFL script just leaked. I feel pretty good about the Rams, but the Bengals, they're a plus 3,000. So I would say maybe a different team possibly.
Yeah, maybe Denver. Denver's got a little orange in there too. So maybe
Jacksonville's kind of greenish too, you know. But okay. Yeah, Denver's makes more sense because the orange.
Yeah, Jacksonville could be the answer. They finally put together a pretty good season. Look, I think that the Rams and the Seahawks are the best two choices because they were the best two teams. Now, I think at the end of last season, if you were saying, you know, who were the best two teams, maybe you could put the Rams in there and they showed up and were one of the better teams. But nobody had the Seahawks. Nobody thought that Sam Darnold and the Seahawks were going to come in and be able to do what they did. I don't think anybody saw the Pats coming. I think we thought that the Pats would be better with Mike Vrabel as their head coach. But this is what makes the NFL so fantastic. This is why it is the most popular league in this country by 100 million miles. It's because you just don't know that one guy underperforms, one guy overperforms, one guy gets injured, and the entire equation gets blown up. So as we sit here, you know, in the middle of February, I think, yeah, sure, the Rams are definitely one of the favorites, but that stuff changes so fast. Matthew Stafford, is he going to have another year like that? Or is the defense going to get better to the point where you can actually stop somebody when you need to? There's a million questions, but as you know, pre-draft, pre-free agency, pre-all that stuff, the Rams are exactly where you'd want to be.
They are. And I think there's some good momentum. I think there's still some hurt feelings about how the season ended, but I think that's going to be used as fuel to be aggressive this offseason. And I think what's really interesting is one of the things you look for all offseason is it's free agency, is the draft, but also it's the schedule, right? I mean, how's the schedule line up? We have the show where we predict the nationally televised games. Well, guess what? We already have a hint as to where they'll be starting their season. In fact, it's confirmed essentially the Rams are going to be opening up their 2026 campaign in Australia against the San Francisco 49ers, a week 1 matchup. It's a 16-hour flight to Australia from California, a 19-hour time difference. So we haven't had a complete confirmation, but there's been multiple reports that this is going to be the matchup. The question now is, will it be a Friday game, a Thursday game? Of course, the Thursday game is the opening night, the ring ceremony where the Seahawks will be playing. We'll see who they go up against. And also the following game, will that be on a Monday just to try to give them some extra time as far as the travel? So Travis, I don't know about you, but last time an LA team started their season off internationally, it happened twice. The Dodgers going to Korea and Tokyo, and both of those teams win the World Series. Hey, the Rams starting internationally. I think this bodes well for Los Angeles teams in their pursuit of a championship.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of it like that. I think you bring up a great point. Who knows? Maybe there's just good vibes on that side of the globe that the LA teams could go over there and pick up. I like it. It is interesting, I think, about where that game lands. Typically that second that international game that kind of kicks off the season is the second game. It's a Friday night game, so maybe that's where it lands. Do you play it so it lands on a Friday night in the U.S., or do you play it on a Friday night in Australia and it lands, I don't know, what would that be here, like Wednesday afternoon? I have no idea what that time difference actually shakes out to be. You mentioned 16 hours or 18 hours or whatever it is, but it'll be cool. It'll be fun. I like the fact that it's likely San Francisco, because being eliminating that San Francisco game from SoFi Stadium, I'm not going to pretend that that's not good for the Rams. It is. That there will be a more balanced fan base in Melbourne or Sydney or wherever they're playing it than there will be in SoFi. The Rams have gotten better as far as filling up their building against the Niners, but it's still mostly Niner fans, and maybe that won't be true on the other side of the world, but that's a long way to go, man. And we've seen it. The Dodgers did it, like you mentioned, but going all the Dodgers played in Australia a million years ago too. I think that was the beginning of Clayton Kershaw's back problem a million years ago. And it's just so far to go that coming back, and even if you kick that week 2 off on a Monday night or whatever it is and buy them a little bit of an extra time, and I guess San Francisco will be dealing with the same thing too, but that is a really long way to go. I get them growing the game and stuff, but my goodness, that's not a hop to Mexico City or even London or Spain or something. That's about as far away as you can get.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up the Kershaw thing as far as him hurting his back in Australia. Of course, I mean, the back for him was always going to probably be an issue at some point. But as far as Matthew Stafford, I mean, look at the guy who Kershaw definitly is familiar with, and the vice versa. He's another guy who deals with back stuff. So I don't know what they have to do, but I know that the Dodgers, Tokyo, just speaking to people over there, is they brought in a lot of like sleep experts, and they went like above and beyond to try to make sure the players traveled well enough. So I'm sure the Rams are going to do something similar, so that won't be an issue. But it's interesting you bring up the thing about the 49ers, because, yeah, I mean, that's like your biggest division rival. That's your biggest rival in total, and you don't get to play them at home. And, yes, of course, there's always a good amount of San Francisco 49er fans, the Bang Bang Escalator Gang, as we like to call them, right? But we talk about Puka Nacua, and Puka Nacua was actually taking a little more heat from Rams fans for his comments when he was on the set with Fred Warner, and they were talking about this, Fred Warner on the 49ers and Puka Nacua, about the Rams losing a home game in LA. And Puka Nacua, his response to that, after Fred Warner said, quote, "You're a home game in Australia, so now you don't get a home game in LA, and then we still get our home game in San Francisco." And Puka's response was, honestly, at SoFi, there's not too many home games. So some Rams fans like, man, it feels like a shot at Rams fans. And to my response to that is, I mean, it's just true. I mean, and I don't think that, I mean, the players know that, the fans know that. And look, just every year it gets better. And that's all I'll say. Every year it gets a little better. And winning a Super Bowl will get a lot better.
Yeah, he's right. I mean, it's not fun to say out loud, and it's I don't know if embarrassing is the right word, but it's disappointing, I guess is a better way. But this is not an indictment of the Rams fans. This is an indictment of being gone for 22 years. That's what this is. People that, what's that phrase? Nature abhors a vacuum. And if there isn't a team, people will pick other teams. And a lot of people in Los Angeles, now I don't quite get this, but a lot of people in LA pick the San Francisco 49ers as their football team. You don't just change back or just change your mind because somebody showed up. This is emotional stuff, and they've decided that the 49ers were their team. It's going to take a while. The Rams have done the best job that you possibly could to accelerate the process. I agree with you that I'm making up numbers here, but if it was 80% 49er fans 5 years ago and then 70 and then 60 with it, it's going in the right direction. But I'm not going to lie to people and tell you that it's not mostly Niner fans. It is. Puka's right. And it's not just the Niners. It's the Cowboys. It's the Packers. It's the Eagles. It's the Bills. It's a lot of these teams that come through here. And LA is a big city with a lot of people from a lot of other places. And, the Rams, relatively speaking, are getting started here. This will be, year 11, 12, whatever it is. And it's going to take time. And, of all the games that could get moved, this is the one that I would want to see move the most, because I think that's the least amount of home field advantage that the Rams have.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it is certainly a reality. I mean, I don't fault. I would prefer Puka. I don't think it was a big shot to fans. Like, things to do better, Rams fans. But I think this is the thing, though. I think it's an important thing to realize is that you got this incredible stadium, the best in the world, top of the line, and then a lot of times when you're playing these games, they have these blue blood franchises, I guess, as you would say, and they get outnumbered. I think that the Rams need to be proactive in trying to control the optics of this. And a lot of times what happens is Rams fans will get season tickets, and then just selling those tickets to the 49ers will pay for here's season tickets, right? Yeah. They need to find a way to incentivize Rams fans. I know it sounds stupid, but they need to find a way to incentivize Rams fans to just either keep their tickets, or Stan Kroenke is an incredibly wealthy man, one of the richest owners in all of professional sports. We live in Los Angeles, California. Centralcasting.com. Back in the day, I was an extra in a couple movies. Back in the day, a couple TV shows. I was a tour guide at Warner Brothers Studios for a couple years, right? And I think Stan Kroenke should just straight up pay extras, pay them to wear Rams gear and be seat fillers. Like, just drop a bag and be like, all right, man, here's like, $200, you get a free ticket, wear Rams stuff, act like crazy Rams fans, and like just fill up the stadium and just have an optics thing until this thing evens out, right?
I've heard worse ideas than that. That's for sure. I've heard way worse ideas than that. The only thing that's going to happen, it's time. It's time. It's time. It's time. It's going to be my kids, your kids, and their kids that become the Rams fans that fill up the stadium. I was a Rams fan before they left, so it was easy for me to jump back in when they came back in. But for somebody that's a little bit younger than me, even just 10 or 12 years younger than me, it was one of these, okay, I love football. Well, let's look around. Well, there's nobody here. You're making all sorts of different choices, and you don't just change back. So they've done as good a job as you can, but it's going to take time. And I'm not mean like a year or two. It could take a generation or two for this to change.
It will, for sure. And there's nothing more vomit-inducing than the flag. It's one flag. It has a Dodgers, Lakers, or 49ers logo. That is absolutely vomit-inducing. It should not exist. Burn that thing. But coming up next, Maxx Crosby to the Rams. Is it a good idea? That's coming up next. I Locked On Rams.
Tax season does not have to take over your life, right? This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move along with your day. Because with TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or without any guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, and it can be hours, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person, or you can connect online if you'd rather do it that way. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms, and they work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, you can go about your day and get updates right there in the TurboTax Act. It is a huge time saver and gives a real peace of mind knowing that an expert is on top of all of it. And for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert did not file for you last year, just file by February 28th. So take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for being Locked On Rams, your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a big shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. Cannot thank you enough. And if you haven't yet, join the Everyday Listeners Club and just check it out. See if you want to join, because I know a lot of Rams fans are loving it. Go to lockedonrams.supercast.com to join today. You get access to a members-only Discord where you can talk Rams football with like-minded, passionate Rams fans 24/7, 365. You get ad-free content. You can listen to this podcast with no ads. And then also you get members-only exclusive merch, all kinds of awesome perks. So go to lockedonrams.supercast.com today to check it out and join that Everyday Listeners Club. Because remember, this is the most important Rams offseason in franchise history. All right, Travis, Maxx Crosby. There's been some buzz about him early on in the offseason. There was a report from NBC Sports where an unnamed GM, probably a GM that wants Maxx Crosby on his team, that he said, there's a quote saying, he told Tom Brady he will never play for the Raiders again. That's a fact. He told them he'll retire before he ever plays for them again. And just we'll kind of start there. And one thing that I will say, though, is whether or not this is true or not, I look at something like DeMarcus Lawrence, right? A guy that said, I love the Cowboys, I'm never going to win a ring here. I mean, there's a little bit of this kind of ring culture for the better players in the NFL where they want a chance to contend while they're still in their primes.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that, you bring up a great example in Lawrence, and I think Crosby fits right smack in the middle of that. I think there are guys that are incredible players that have gone out and given everything it possibly can give, and it still doesn't make a bit of difference because the organization is just so inept, just so, discombobulated and bad. And I don't know if there's a better example of discombobulated and bad than the Raiders. Maxx Crosby knows that no matter how good he is, no matter how hard he works, no matter how many things he tries to bring to the table, it's not going to make much of a difference. The Raiders have been bad for a quarter century, and there's no end in sight. I know, new coach, Tom Brady's involved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, fine. But how many times have we been through this, and it's just about the same? So I understand why he would want out. This isn't after a year or two or a personality that this is, I want to go play in some games that matter, and he hasn't. And I would think that if you're a team like the Rams, or, and there are others, but that can offer you some stability, some functionality, so just some basic competence. We talk about this on Locked On Rams all the time. The everydayers have heard me say this a lot. Just a coach that knows what he's doing, a general manager that knows what he's doing, an owner that stays out of the way, position coaches that know what they're doing, a quarterback that can make things happen, just basic competency. That would be incredibly appealing to somebody who's been dealing with nothing but chaos their entire career. So, yeah, I believe that quote sounds about right from Maxx Crosby.
Yeah, and what I love about it is it kind of gets we actually heard from Crosby on Jim Gray's show, and he's like, I just looked at my phone. I've been working all morning. Everyone's hitting me up. Did you say this? I can't control that. You earned that as a player. If I wasn't going to do the right things, if I wasn't the player I was, people wouldn't be talking about all this. For me, I know what I'm about. I know what I represent. I didn't hear him say, I want to be a Raider for life in there, Travis.
Right. No. What you don't say is just as important as what you do say. And what he didn't say is, I didn't say it. And what he didn't say is, I want to stay in Vegas and wear the silver and black forever. Now, first of all, here's the other thing too, Doug. Almost nobody plays on one team. Almost nobody. Everybody in this league Tom Brady played on more than one team. Peyton Manning played on more than one team. Joe Montana played on more than one team. It's much more rare to stay where you are for your entire career than it is to move around. So him moving is not a huge shock if, in fact, that's what happens. And look, I would try to move heaven and earth to get a guy like Maxx Crosby, because I really do think that is a big piece of what the Rams are missing.
And he did say that he wants to win. So, I mean, that could be taken as, if you want to win and be on the Raiders, that's usually not in the same stratosphere, right? So I think the thing about Crosby is interesting too, is he's one of the more vocal out there players. Like, he has a podcast that he has during the season, and he has been, I don't think I've ever heard a player I mean, there's been a couple examples, right? But a player that has been this adamant about his praise for Matthew Stafford, saying like he was his favorite player growing up and that Matthew Stafford's the best quarterback in the league. It's just like he absolutely gushes about Matthew Stafford. And we saw like the pride that a quarterback kind of gives defensive players. Like, I mean, like yes. Ernest Jones, right? I mean, defending Sam Darnold, all that stuff, right? Like there's something about like playing for your quarterback, even though you're not on the same side of the football, that gets guys going. And I think if you're just kind of looking at like all these little things and combining them, like that's definitely at least a reason why it makes at least a little more sense for the Rams than it would for another team. And the Rams have picks to trade. You know, they have 2 first-round picks to do it. And you know, I'm just going to steal your line, Doug. You said it a lot over the last, several weeks during the entire season. You know, Matthew Stafford is your favorite quarterback's favorite quarterback. That he's just one of those guys that everybody in the league respects. Everybody in the league understands the complexity of what he's doing and the difficulty of what he's doing and the toughness that he brings to the field, that he's just a dude, right? And I think Maxx Crosby is a dude, and game recognizes game so that he wants to be a part of it. And think about the guys that he's seen come through Vegas. He knows that he hasn't had the real deal at that position since he's come into the league, really. And he also understands that, and this is why I think Ernest Jones did what he did with Sam Darnold. If I don't have one of those guys, then I got no chance. So of course they're going to defend these guys. And when you got a guy that's not only just one of those guys, but one of the very thinnest slice of guys like Stafford is, of course you're going to go to battle for that guy. Yeah, and the thing with Crosby is, I mean, the contract, you signed that $106.5 million deal last March, an expensive player, and then you factor in, too, you got Byron Young, 12 sacks, led the Rams, but he's entering his final year of his rookie contract. So the Rams are going to have to decide if they're going to extend him. And Byron Young really just a year younger than Maxx Crosby. And I think the way to look at it is if there's a plan in place to address that cornerback position, whether that be via the draft for a player they feel like in year one can get the job done and improve that position, or a free agent, maybe not the top, but maybe a little under that they think that, okay, we're going to improve that position. Then it just becomes who are the very best guys that you can get with those picks, figure everything out. I mean, I don't think there's anyone out there that would say that Maxx Crosby isn't an upgrade to Byron Young, even though you love Byron Young, right? And then you pair him with Jared Verse, and then that's kind of where the NFL is going. It's about the pass rush. It's about getting to the quarterback. It's the premium position. And two, I think, look, we always, it's a kind of a part of the angle that we always take. It's like we talk about the 49ers thing in Los Angeles. Like Crosby has star power. He has some juice. And I think that certainly plays a factor as well. And I think I think there's a real possibility that we're re-entering an F them picks era. And if that means you got a couple of picks that got to go out to go get a star, and that's what Crosby is, a star, then I think it's more likely now than it has been in several years, because that window is open, but it's also closing. The window for now is Matthew Stafford and his ability to do it. I know Sean McVay is always going to give you a good chance to win, and that's a great thing to have, but the defense needs to get better. And if you can't fix it with corners, the way you can fix it is by not making the corners cover as long and getting home. And Byron Young had a really nice year, but more important, he had a really nice first half of the year. He really wasn't as involved in what was going on in the second half of the year. I think Jared Verse, if we're being honest, Doug, that his year two in this league was kind of I mean, it wasn't bad, but it also wasn't what we were hoping it would be. We were hoping Jared Verse would be an all-pro. You were hoping he would be one of the biggest game records in the league, and he wasn't that. And maybe it'll happen in year three, but there's no question what Crosby's going to bring to the table. Yeah, 58 tackles, 7.5 sacks, 17 games. You certainly, his pass rushing win rate kind of dropped a little bit too. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where I don't want to call it like a sophomore slump, but certainly. I mean, we saw Devontae Adams got to help Puka Nacua get to the next level. Yeah. Devontae Adams is really cool with Crosby. Maybe Crosby can help Verse get to the next level, things like that. I mean, having star veterans definitely impacts your defense. But coming up next, did you see Ernest Jones's speech at the Seahawks parade? A little unhinged. And are we happy for Cooper Kupp? It's been a couple of days. I'm very interested to get Travis's thoughts on that. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
The winter games are officially here, and if you are anything like us, you're locking in for events that you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years, right? And that's why following the winter games on FanDuel, that just makes sense, because from medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports that you care about the most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to all of that incredible action. The drama of curling matches, I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. Curling matches, they start slow and they get intense, and it happens fast. Speed skating races decided by that much inches, right? Hockey games, those always feel different. Those are amazing from the very beginning. And even niche events become must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition. And FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from the very beginning until the very end. And the winter games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Travis. Cooper Kupp, a Super Bowl champion with the Seahawks. And I don't know why I did this, but I did kind of look back at some of our episodes that we did after Cooper Kupp ended up going with the Seahawks. And we specifically were talking about in the episode, it was kind of eerie. I almost like cut the clip for this. We literally were saying, the worst thing that could happen, I mean, really, it's probably not going to happen, but let's be honest. The worst thing that could happen would be he goes to Seattle, helps them win a Super Bowl, and they beat the Rams in the playoffs for whatever reason. They go on to be champions. But we know it's not going to happen. But if it did, that would be the worst thing. And, dude, the worst thing happened.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yes, you're right. But I think their context is important here. And I don't like saying this because I don't like saying it. He really wasn't a huge factor. I know he caught a pass against the Rams for a touchdown in the NFC Championship game. I know that he was the number one target in the Super Bowl because JSN got hurt and missed some time. But if you go back and you look at Cooper Kupp's stats over the course of the season, if you go back and you look at Cooper Kupp's stats in the postseason, you go and he wasn't the reason the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. He was a part of a team, and he was an important part of a team to a degree, but this wasn't Kenneth Walker. This wasn't, JSN. This wasn't Raheed Shaheed. This was Cooper Kupp, and he was good. But had he gone out there and killed everybody, had he gone out there and been prime Kupp like he was for the Rams on their Super Bowl run back in 2021, then that would have been gutting. I think the fact that he was more of a role player in this environment makes it a little bit easier to tolerate, just because it wasn't like he was just killing you on every play. Had he been doing the JSN thing, it would have been, I can't stomach this, but that's not really what it was. I'm happy for him. I'm glad he won another Super Bowl, I guess, even if it was at the expense of the Rams. But it wasn't like every time he caught a ball, you're saying, oh, we could have had that, or we could have had that, we could have had that. He had a fine season, but I still think the Rams made 100% the right decision in doing what they did.
I think that, look, if they ask you, okay, what would you rather have last season, Davante Adams or Cooper Kupp? You couldn't really have the debate. I mean, Davante Adams literally had 12 more receiving touchdowns than Cooper Kupp during the season. But I will say, he had a touchdown against the Rams, he had that big first down, and then he was a leading receiver for the Seahawks. He did more than I expected him to do for that run. And kind of the question is did the Rams, how did the Rams kind of handle his exit? There were, Mike Silver of The Athletic, he was, put out some stuff, and there were some really interesting things where there were some rumors that the Rams were kind of trying to urge him to retire potentially and things like that. So, he got the last laugh, though. I will say this, he absolutely got the last laugh. Cooper Kupp is a multi-time Super Bowl champion, and he wins for his home state Seahawks and played a role in beating the Los Angeles Rams. And it's tough to say, too, what his veteran presence did for that team that really didn't have too many veterans that have experience winning at the highest level. And it felt like the Rams, especially on defense, didn't have those guys, and it cost them. And there's just something to be said about that.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with everything you said. And it was, look, one of my favorite expressions, if things didn't end badly, they wouldn't end, right? And unfortunately, this ended badly, at least somewhat badly, or he wouldn't be in Seattle. And I understand why he wanted to keep playing. But, if everybody kept their favorite players for as long as they possibly could, you'd have really bad teams a lot of the time. And maybe there was a little bit left of gas left in Cooper Kupp's tank, but I'll say it again. I do not have a problem with the fact that they moved on from him. I really don't have a problem with the fact that they moved on from him to upgrade to Davante Adams the way that they did. But I'm happy for him. I'm glad that he has the proverbial last laugh, but I don't think this was a mistake in any way, shape, or form for the Rams.
I don't either, but it makes you wonder. I mean, the talent evaluation, thinking Jordan Whittington was ready, bringing Tutu Atwell back. I mean, we'll never know how much he was willing to rework his contract to stay with the Rams. And I do think on Cooper Kupp's end, it's pretty poetic. The fact that first down forced Sean McVay to use that timeout the way that it did to essentially ended the Rams season. So, I mean, look, for me, I'm not happy for him at all. I hate the fact they won a Super Bowl. I absolutely hate it, like beyond belief. But I will say, respect for getting that big middle finger towards the Rams if that's what he was looking to do. And we know a lot of players can operate off of vengeance. Some players can't, right? What does the great Stu Lance say? A mad player is a bad player. Yeah, but not necessarily. And I think that he was kind of playing mad throughout that postseason run. But we'll see how that. The cool thing about this is that one thing I do know is that when it's all said and done, he'll be at SoFi. There'll be a big tribute, and once time goes along, he'll still be remembered for being a Ram.
Oh yeah. Look. For sure, he had his highest highs as a Ram. He was a Super Bowl MVP as a Ram. He was one of the great players for the second version of the LA Rams, really from the moment he showed up. And, like we talked about at the beginning with Crosby, no one stays in one place for their entire career. Guys move on, and you'd rather be a little late or a little early than a little late. And I don't think they were early. If anything, I think they were a little late. And good for him. I'm glad he won, I guess. Like you said, if the Rams don't win the Super Bowl, I don't really care who does. It's, it's all the same if it's not me. It was time, and he won. He got it right. Good for him.
Yeah, good for Cooper Kupp. But hopefully this is the last Super Bowl he'll ever win ever. Yeah, right. But that's it over this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. You can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.